Welcome back to MobilityWOD. A good friend of the MobilityWOD suggested that maybe we do a segment about kind of this anterior compartment, upper kind of cervical quadrant, and let's talk about that today. A lot of this shortness and tightness in the upper neck really impacts the athlete for a lot of reasons. One is that it ends when these short neck flexors get tight. It definitely biases and ties into my shoulder because, hey, my shoulder is actually directly attached to my neck. It leads to kind of forward head on neck position. This is the natural shortening. I potentially trash my cervical disc. I get lower cervical flexion, upper cervical extension, and I get this kind of weird combination movement that trashes my neck. As Tony Blauer talks about a lot, is that when I lose position, I lose power. So, at our gym, when the athletes walk back with a squat and look down at their feet, that's an immediate foul. They have to re-rack. So if it's important to maintain that neutral kind of midline stabilization concept, kind of from head to toe, then we know that if I break one way or the other, I lose that positioning. So we're going to really try to make sure that we're long here, and that means that we need to be open here. So if you're a keyboard jockey, you're working at the desk all the time with this kind of rounded thoracic positioning, then we absolutely need to get you in a better position. So it's kind of complicated to open up here, and there's not a certain one stretch, but let's take an approach that what we're going to do is give you something that kind of opens up the front of the neck here. We'll tie that into your shoulder function. We'll look at maybe the lats and some of the internal rotators of the arm that lead me into a shoulder position that's forward, that then pulls the neck back. And then we'll work on the thoracic spine. Because if your thoracic spine is stiff, then obviously it makes it very difficult to get your head out of that position until you can correct that thoracic spine. So here's our approach. First thing we'll start with is we're doing kind of hand behind the back, bully-like stretch. I like the distraction of the strap. I'm going to wind up, go that hand behind back, and I'm always looking for a tie-in between shoulder and neck. And so here's what I've done is I've biased this back shoulder position. This certainly could just be reaching behind your back at the desk. And then I'm going to go ahead and tack my neck over. So this other hand comes up and apply some pressure at the scalenes, at the platysma here, right above the collarbone. And I'm just going to go over a little bit. And the fact that I've already anchored the shoulder means I don't have to have a lot of excursion of the neck, closing off those little cervical joints. So I've just biased the shoulder back, and I'm just going to go ahead and spend a minute or two camping out here, taking some big breaths. And if I can tie my neck in, that's brilliant to my shoulder because it really kind of gets the 2 for 1, and then that leaves me a lot more open down here with a lot kind of better attachment. We know, for example, that if I get the shoulder back, the pec has more mechanical advantage. If the shoulder's forward, because the whole thing is forward, then the pec is less effective. Just for example. Remember that the other day when we were at CrossFit Unlimited, we went ahead and showed you this neck stretch where we wound up the tricep, put the scapula back and tied in here, just as a reminder. But we're going to go ahead and go behind the back and then looking, hunting in the front here. The second piece is to go ahead and get back on your thoracic balls, right? Put those lacrosse balls back here. Can wind up, try to look for that extension piece, address that overextension or address that underextension, and work on that thoracic stiffening and work back and forth. That's the second piece. Come back in today for number 3 is to kind of bias some of this lat stuff, really exaggerate turning the hand over. That's going to wind that lat up, and then let's camp in there. And then finally, here's the nasty one. It's like running yourself into the wall. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your lacrosse ball and you're going to drive your head through a doorway. And that's what makes it possible. So I'm going to be able to kind of reef all of the soft tissues below the clavicle, catch all that subclavius, pec minor, all that stuff. And what I'm going to do is just put the ball here and then lean into the wall and get my full weight going into that thing. And then I can take a big breath, I can move my arm around, I can even try some hand behind back. Oh God, that's terrible. But I can really camp out back and forth here. So, if we open up here, we've got something for the neck, we're working on thoracic spine in one piece. And so we certainly start to see, hey, you're a system of systems, don't panic. Go after this today. And last idea, if you sit at a desk, you get to practice your bench press position. You go shoulders back, externally rotate like you're going to break the bar a little bit. Don't tilt, keep everything tight. And then elbows come down to the side. And if you can't reach your mouse and your keyboard in this position, you have a problem. The second that arm comes forward, it's going to let that whole sequela of events happen, and that's the slow death. Don't be that guy.